Welcome to Cheating Story Star. Tonight, Cameron comes home unexpectedly and discovers something behind his bedroom door that changes everything. But what he does next is far more calculated than anyone could imagine. Let's begin. My name is Cameron, and I still remember the exact sound my bedroom door made that night. A quiet click. Almost nothing. Except I wasn't the one closing it. I had come home early from work because a meeting was canceled. I remember being annoyed about the wasted drive home. Then I heard my wife's voice upstairs. Soft. Careful. Almost playful. I stopped halfway up the stairs. There was a man with her. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. Then Claire laughed. That laugh used to belong to me. I stood there with one hand against the wall, trying to convince myself there had to be another explanation. There wasn't. I could have opened that door. I could have demanded answers. Instead, I took out my phone and recorded the hallway. Not because I was thinking clearly, because some instinct inside me understood something my heart refused to accept. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a secret, and I had just walked into it. I quietly went back downstairs. My hands were shaking. My face wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the empty chair across from me. How long? That was the only question in my mind. Not why. Not who. Just, how long has my wife been living a second life behind my back? The next morning, Claire acted normal. That almost broke me more than what I'd heard. She poured coffee into my cup, asked if I wanted eggs, then I kissed my cheek before leaving for work. I watched her walk away. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to say everything, but I said nothing. Because suddenly every ordinary moment felt like evidence. Her late nights, the phone she never left unattended, the new password on her laptop, the weekend trips she called work events. I had ignored all of it because trust makes you blind in a very specific way. You don't ignore the truth because you're stupid. You ignore it because accepting it means destroying the life you've built. That afternoon, I checked our joint account. There were hotel charges, restaurant bills, a storage unit, and one recurring payment under a name I recognized. Daniel Mercer. Claire had mentioned him once. An old colleague. Nothing important. At least that's what she'd told me. I stared at his name for several minutes. Then I noticed something else. The hotel charges appeared on nights Claire had told me she was working late. My stomach turned. But I still didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed the truth. Not suspicion, not anger. Truth. So when Claire came home that evening and smiled at me, I smiled back. She had no idea that while she was asking how my day went, I had already started quietly dismantling the lies she had built around me. I became patient. That was the hardest part. Every instinct told me to confront her. Instead, I watched. I checked dates, bank records, travel receipts. Nothing dramatic. Just small pieces that began forming one ugly picture. Daniel's name appeared again and again. Then I discovered something worse. Claire had been visiting a storage unit every Thursday evening. I didn't go there. I didn't need to. I hired a private investigator. 3 days later, I received photographs. Claire and Daniel leaving a restaurant together. Claire entering a hotel, Daniel arriving at our house. And then one photograph that made everything inside me go cold. Daniel was standing outside our bedroom window. Our bedroom. The place where Claire and I had spent 11 years together. I stared at the picture until the details blurred. Then I made my own test. I told Claire I would be away for 2 nights. She smiled. Be careful. I kissed her forehead. I will. I left Friday afternoon. Then I parked several streets away. At 8:16 p.m., Daniel arrived. At 8:29, he entered our house. I stayed in my car. I didn't need to see anything else. But the investigator found something I hadn't expected. Claire had been preparing to leave me. She had contacted a realtor. She had discussed selling our house. And she had written, Daniel, that she needed me to sign several financial documents first. Suddenly, the affair wasn't the worst part. The betrayal had become a plan, and I realized something that night. Claire wasn't simply cheating on me. She was preparing to take my future with her. The investigator gave me the evidence in a thick envelope. I opened it slowly. Hotel records, photographs, messages, financial documents. 8 months. 8 months of lies, but one message stopped me completely. Claire had written Daniel, once Cameron signs the papers, we'll be free to start over. I read it again. Then again, my hands stopped shaking. Something strange happened. The pain became quiet. not smaller, just quieter. I finally understood why she had been so patient with me, why she kept asking when I would be home, why she suddenly cared about my schedule. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing what she could get from me. That evening, I placed the entire file on our kitchen table. Claire walked through the door. She saw it. Her face went pale. Cameron, I pointed toward the chair. Sit. She did. I opened the folder. She saw the photographs. Then the messages. Her eyes filled with tears. I can explain. I looked at her. I know. She stared at me. You know? I nodded. Everything I needed to know. For the first time in 11 years, Claire looked genuinely afraid. Not because I was angry, because I wasn't. She realized I had already stopped fighting for the marriage. And there is nothing more frightening to a betrayer than discovering their victim has stopped begging for answers. Claire expected me to explode. Instead, I slid an envelope across the table. She opened it. Inside was the legal separation agreement. The house was protected. The financial documents she wanted me to sign were canceled. The accounts were secured. And the evidence had already been given to my attorney. She stared at me. You planned this? No. I paused. I prepared for the truth. She began crying. Then came the words I knew would come. Please don't leave me. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was too late. You left me months ago, I said. She shook her head. I made a mistake. I looked at the photographs on the table. 8 months isn't a mistake, Claire. Silence. She reached for my hand. I moved it away. Not violently. Just enough to make the message clear. There would be no reconciliation. No final argument. No dramatic revenge. I had done something much more devastating. I had removed myself from the game. Daniel had expected me to disappear quietly. Claire had expected me to remain predictable. They were both wrong. Before I left, Claire whispered my name. I stopped at the door. She asked, "Did you ever love me?" I looked back at her. More than you deserved. Her face collapsed. Then I walked out. For once, I didn't need the last word. The truth had already said everything. Months passed. Claire sent messages. Then letters. I never answered. At first, silence felt unnatural. Then it became peaceful. I moved into a smaller apartment. I changed my routine. I stopped checking her social media. Stopped wondering where she was. Stopped asking myself what I had done wrong. That last question was the hardest one to let go. Because betrayal makes you search for your own defects. You wonder whether you weren't attractive enough, successful enough, interesting enough. But eventually I understood. Someone else's dishonesty is not proof of your inadequacy. It is proof of their choice. One evening I drove past our old house. The curtains were gone. The driveway looked different. Someone else's life had already started there. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger. No jealousy. No desire to know what happened to Claire. Just distance. Real distance. I finally understood that revenge wasn't watching her suffer. It wasn't destroying Daniel. It wasn't making them regret what they had done. My revenge was becoming unreachable. They had taken my trust. They had taken 8 months of my life, but they hadn't taken the rest of it. I drove away from that house without looking back, because the night I caught them in my bedroom, I thought I had lost everything. I was wrong. I had only lost the life built on a lie. And when I finally left it behind, I realized I wasn't walking away from my marriage. I was walking back to myself.